Welcome to Dolby Creator Talks. This is a show about how artists use technology to tell their stories, and I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. Today we welcome back two-time Academy Award-winning film composer Ludwig Göransson, as well as executive music producer Serena Göransson, to discuss the stunning use of music in Ryan Coogler's film Sinners. You may remember the last time we spoke with Ludwig, it was when he was nominated for Best Original Score for Oppenheimer, which he then won. He is once again garnering quite a bit of buzz for the music of Sinners and its innovative use as a powerful storytelling tool. And personally, I couldn't agree more. Music is central to the story of Sinners, and I thought it was one of the most exciting films of the year. But let us know what you think. Leave us a comment with your thoughts on how music was used in Sinners. On the day after we recorded this interview, the music of Sinners received an amazing 6 Grammy nominations, including Best Score Soundtrack, Best Compilation Soundtrack, Best Instrumental Composition, and 3 for Best Song written for film or TV. So here with more context on what exactly went into the creative process behind this extraordinary work, we have our guest host, music journalist Jon Burlingame, here to interview Ludwig and Serena Göransson about the music of Sinners. Here's Jon.
Our guests today are significant figures in the film music world. Ludwig Göransson is an Oscar, Emmy, and Grammy winner, responsible for the scores of Black Panther, Oppenheimer, and The Mandalorian, among others. His wife Serena Göransson has a classical music background. She's a former violinist with the Jana Key String Trio and a longtime studio musician. We're talking to both of them today about Sinners, Ryan Coogler's film about good and evil and blues music in 1930s Mississippi. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ludwig, this seems like the most music-centric movie that you've done yet with Ryan Coogler. I wonder, how did this all start for you? I often wonder if Ryan keeps you in the loop on what he's thinking about, what he's planning, and what he might forge ahead with.
Ryan we're also friends. We were actually friends before we became collaborators. So we've been really good with keeping in contact throughout the years. And whenever we're not working, we're still trying to catch up. And he's also, he's obviously secretive, but he's kind of, whenever he's up to something, he'll keep me in the loop. And I remember one time he called me kind of out of the blue, and I saw on FaceTime, he was sitting, because he lives in the Bay Area and I live in Los Angeles. And I saw him sitting with a guitar in his lap, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm trying to learn this song. I'm actually writing something about a guitar player." And that's kind of how I found out that what he was working on was a movie about music.
When you guys started talking seriously about this, I'm wondering, was there some idea that maybe you should go down south and investigate all this personally?
Honestly, being able to work on a movie about music has always been a dream of mine. But also to work on a movie about blues music is, obviously what you have to do there is to try to learn as much as possible. And so one of the first things we did was to go to Memphis and do the blues trail down to Clarksdale. And I got to also bring my dad along. My dad is the person who introduced me to music, and he was my guitar teacher. He bought his first John Lee Hooker blues record in 1964. And he's always been wanting to go to the Delta, and I got to bring him along on this ride. So me and my dad and Ryan, and then Boo Mitchell, who owns Royal Studios, took us on a big, beautiful tour throughout the Delta. And then we met up back at Royal Studios, and Serena came out, and we had a kind of a big jam session where we invited blues musicians from all over the Delta to come in, and Ryan was talking to them about the movie, and that became kind of the first musical meeting where we started gathering ideas for the music.
So, Serena, you're credited as executive music producer on Sinners. What did that entail?
It was so many things. It was working with Ryan and Ludwig on the songs in the film, many of which were written into the script to begin with. A few of those changed as we moved through it. For me, my main objective was trying to deepen the film with the music story in as many ways as possible, and to touch on as many musical styles as we could, and use the time that we had in the film to I guess just infuse it with as much realness as we could. I kind of cringe when I think of using the word authenticity, because there really is no way of doing that.
Well, and that was, in fact, my next question was, number one, how important is musical authenticity in this film? And number two, is it possible to achieve?
It's everything. It was everything to us. It was everything. It was so important that we connected with the right people, that we had not only the right instruments and musical styles represented on screen, but they were represented by the right people, by people who had lived this life, a few of whom are still with us, Buddy Guy, Bobby Rush, and then young blues musicians who have spent their lives dedicated to this culture. It's so much more than a genre. You know, when these songs, when this style of music was first being played, or when it sort of evolved out of other things, it wasn't a genre, right? It was only when it started to be recorded and, you know, when it became a commodity that it became a genre.
Ludwig, let me ask you about casting, because it seems to me that finding actors who either already played instruments or were able to learn new instruments would have been crucial on this. Were you involved in the casting at all? Or did you then come on after these people were cast to then sort of figure out what they needed to know musically?
No, I was involved in the casting in a way where you know, looking at, especially at the music, on the music front, Ryan set the bar really high in terms of the part he wrote for Preacher Boy Sammy, which is supposed to be able to play guitar and have a voice of a you know, of one of the best singers and guitar players in town. And you know, Francine was our casting director, so she kept sending us you know, like a crazy amount of audition tapes every day. Like I had like 50 new audition tapes of Sammy to go through. And yeah, I mean, it's finding someone with an iconic voice and that is a great guitar player.
Tall order.
Is a tall order, and also can act. So, and I think we were looking for weeks, maybe months for Sammy. And I remember when Ryan forwarded me Francine's email, clicked the email and opened up Miles Caton. And as soon as I saw him and he started talking, I was like, wow, this guy he's only 19 years old and he's got it. Like, he sounds like a 50-year-old, you know? And I was completely mesmerized just by his voice. And then, right after that, he started singing and I was like, you know, almost fell off my chair. And he was he could play guitar decent, you know, some chords. He was not a guitar player originally, but as soon as, you know, immediately when I heard him, I understood he's a musical kind of savant, and music is easier for him. And he has been touring since he was 15 years old for her, AGR. And he kind of got the role. He flew to LA and did an audition, and then he got the role immediately. And he took guitar lessons for about 3.5 months. And it was not, you know, it's not easy guitar playing that he does. He got really good at it. You know, he's playing slide guitar accompaniment and plays the solo at the same time. And what you see in the film, that's him doing it all live.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, and that's why we get those kind of incredible. I think that transcends that it's live. You know, you see when he's performing for Michael B. Jordan for Stack in the car for the first time, and you see Michael B. Jordan's reaction. He's like, "Woo!" You know, and that's a genuine reaction. And that live performance then transcends, I think, from the screen onto the audience.
Traveling, I don't know where the world I'm in. Traveling, I don't know where the world I'm in. Woo! Boy!
The whole film revolves around music in one way or another. And there are so many individual musical moments, I think, in the picture. I wonder if you can talk about how much prep was required, maybe even months, before you actually were able to start shooting.
Yeah, I mean, everything in this movie came together relatively fast, I would say, because he had, I think, a sense that this movie, for him to be able to do this, he needed to do it at a certain time where he knew his closest collaborators was able to pull this together, and he knew that he could, but he had to shoot it now because he knows that some people have, you know, things that further down the pipeline that's going to take years off their availability, you know. And I think he, you know, from when I got the script, it was maybe 4 or 5 months before we actually started shooting the film. And when I'm reading in the script, you know, like original songs, there's covers, there's, you know, a lot of music. But I wasn't worried about us figuring it out and getting the music written because we have this relationship. I know what he's going to like. I know what it's not going to like. So I just knew that in order to make this happen, like Serena and I need to find the right collaborators, the right musicians to write the songs with, and you know, the right musicians to come out and play the songs on set in New Orleans. And I wasn't, even though, and also I think it was smart of Ryan to like ask me if I wanted to produce the film because they knew how much work it was going to be. I've never done this before. Like I never gone down to set. I never gone down to set for 3 months, lived there, worked there. You know, I go to set like maybe 1 or 2 days out of a whole shoot. But moving, Serena and I moved our whole family, so our team from the studio here, we rented a big church called Esplanade Studios in New Orleans, and moved everyone there, set up camp for 3 months, and started this new crazy life for 3.5 months, where we would work on music during the day, and at night we would go to set from like 5 p.m. to 6 a.m. because they did 1 month of night shoots for the vampires for their scenes. So when we were shooting the Rocky Road to Dublin, we had, you know, I had to be at call time at 5 p.m. to find out, we're shooting this last at 4 a.m. in the morning. So, you know, and you're 2 hours outside of New Orleans in a swamp with alligators and snakes, and you don't want to drive back for 2 hours, you know. So, and it was really, it was a completely different challenge for me in a way where I thought in the beginning that we're going to be 3 months in New Orleans. I'm going to work on my score there for 3 months surrounded by instruments by myself and like have all this time but that was a completely wrong idea what the real life was going to be. You know, I had the actors coming in every day. Whenever they had time, the actors would come in and rehearse their songs. We would have Irish musicians come in recording. You know, it was just kind of the amount of people coming in and out of the studio every day was kind of insane.
So you really needed Serena there to help coordinate everything, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, she was, I mean, you know, sometimes, I mean, if I think I was working long hours, like she was really pulling crazy hours, you know, and because it was just so much work, and she was also, you know, she was obviously involved in the creative, but then also on the other side, you know, figuring out, like talking with the studio about like, oh, we need real musicians to, we not just extras, the musicians actually really need to be able to play, like, and explaining that, the politics of that, and calling the musicians from Memphis, from Mississippi, from flying people out from LA, like the day before we find out the day before about that we finally going to shoot this train station scene where Delroy Lindo's playing harmonica for the first time, and he's supposed to be the best harmonica player in the world. Best harmonica player in Clarksdale. That means the best harmonica player at the time in the world. And even though harmonica is kind of easy to fake, relatively easy to fake playing it, we knew that we want to make this as great as possible. So Serena had this incredible relationship with this genius musician, Bobby Rush, who's like a legend in blues music, and he's 91 years old.
So talk a little bit, will you, about tracking down Bobby Rush, the legendary harmonica player, because Delroy Lindo's character plays a harmonica in the film.
I sort of stalked Bobby for a year or so, a year and a half. We first met in Los Angeles randomly at an event. He just walked by us, and we happened to be with Ludwig's father, Thomas, who is major blues fan and blues musician, and he lost his mind. He was so starstruck. So as we always, when those couple times when we've run into people who are his heroes, we figure out how to make the introduction. So we got to meet him. He was so sweet. He was so kind. He gave me his number. And then a few months after that, I was in London. I had one free night looking through the concerts. And of course, Bobby Rush is playing. So I went and saw him there, connected. And at that point, I knew that I was going to be working on the music with Ryan and Ludwig for Sinners. I didn't tell him what it was, but I just mentioned that I'd be reaching out, and I hoped that we could get together. It just so happened that he was flying back east the day that we filmed the railroad station scene, and he was willing to completely change his travel the night before to be there and to connect with Delroy. And they had this really powerful connection that I think you feel in the performance the first time we see Delta Slim.
So you're shooting, Delroy's got the harmonica up to his mouth, and Bobby Rush is on the set playing live?
Yes. Bobby's sitting in the crowd. He's surrounded by background actors. We're facing Delroy. They're in sync. They're watching each other. They haven't planned this. It's not a song. It's an improvisation. And Delroy's been working hard, working with different harmonica teachers in New Orleans. This was at the end of the shoot. He'd been working for months on piano with Ludwig almost every day, and sometimes with me, singing, like sending us these beautiful voice memos of him singing these different songs. He was really, we watched his character take shape. And the culmination was this day at the railroad station. And Bobby's playing off of the movements that Delroy's making. Delroy's obviously locked into what Bobby's doing, is trying to, and they just came up with this thing together. And it was incredibly special. There's no one in the world, it's a brief moment, and it could have been anyone playing the harmonica, and it would have been fine, right? It would have been fine. But for it to feel the way it feels, there's only one person in the world who's lived that life, who's had that experience and could say what he said.
I do want to ask about the guitar, but before I get there, tell me about Jack O'Connell, who plays Remick, I guess you'd call him an Irish vampire. What was his role? Was he already a singer? Did he already know these sort of old classic Irish tunes?
He was already a singer. I mean, his dad is Irish. So it was a huge. It was a big honor for him to kind of represent that side of his family and represent his dad, and he really took it on to himself to make the best performance he could. He would come into the studio to rehearse Rocky Road, to rehearse and record Rocky Road to Dublin, so many times to get it perfect. And Serena had this incredible idea to create this intro to Rocky Road to Dublin, where we had very old form of Celtic singing in the beginning. And she contacted like an incredible singer in Ireland, his name is Jarla Leonard. And he, in this very old style way, was singing, making an intro to Rocky Road to Dublin, where he's kind of weaving the melody around in a really beautiful kind of rubato, slow way, which was very emotional and really set the tone for Jack's character. And Jack was incredible to work with.
I mean, the cast was just so devoted. Anytime they weren't shooting, any days they weren't shooting, their off days, they would come to the studio and just hang out. They would listen to the songs. They would hear kind of where the arrangements were going. We would rehearse with them. We brought in dialect coaches because Beth, the dialect coach for the film, wanted very specific Irish accents. She very clearly did not want a Dublin accent. She wanted a Munster accent. And part of that was because Jack's father is Irish, and Jack was dedicating his performance to him. And this is the part of Ireland he's from. We connected with Jack before he came to set. We had an idea in the script, it says the trio sings a mountain song. And we had some ideas of what we thought it could be. We thought it could be another Geisha Wiley song called Last Kind Words. And Jack really, really wanted us to consider Wild Mountain Time or Go Lassie Go, depending on who you ask. Once Ryan signed off on that song, he loved the idea. We started working on the harmonies. There have been so many arrangements of it. All the music in the film, we wanted to feel really lived in, not a performance. You're there and you're expressing something. We spent a lot of time on which harmonies to do, which verses to use. One thing that we learned as we went is that the songs that weren't original, the songs that are traditional or which you would expect to be in the public domain, were oftentimes not. And that was true for both the Irish folk music and the blues, the prison songs, the work songs. It's a very quick scene, but we have a prison, an imprisoned group of men who are singing as they work. And what we found is that these are not public domain. They're, many people know Alan Lomax, someone who who went to prisons and recorded these songs. And so they're all, copywritten under his name, his company. And it's, it was an interesting process to delve deeper into how all of that works.
Tell me about this beautiful 1932 Dobro Cyclops, I guess it is, resonator guitar. We see it in the movie. And is that your guitar? Did you find this along the way? And how important was it in the score?
That was kind of one of the first things that got me started in this film, was to find the right type of guitar. And Ryan kept sending me images of Charlie Patton, because Charlie Patton was playing the similar type of guitar. It's a resonator. So what that means is that the body, I have two of them here in the studio, but the body is made of there's a metal piece in the middle of the guitar, and the company was called Dobro that made these guitars. It was an American company called Dobro, and it had a resonator which made the tone distort a little bit, and also made the instrument become louder, because at that time you didn't have amplifiers, so you had that resonator. And at that time in the 30s, the musicians was a one-man band. Your musicians were buskers. You would play, and so why would you have several people where you have to share the money? There's no reason for that. You would stand in a corner, you would play at a juke joint, you would play by yourself, but you're a one-man band. So you would play Charlie Patton. He would sit there and he would play guitar. He would play the drums on the guitar. He would play the bass on the guitar. He would play, and he would sing with two different characters on the same song. It was, and like I'm listening to all this now through doing research for the film, like listening to Charlie Patton, it's like, and Robert Johnson, Tommy Johnson, like a lot of the music on the 20s and 30s. And it is so complicated, like the way that, especially rhythmically, like we don't experience music like this anymore. No one can play this kind of that type of rhythm anymore. It's not set to a straight beat. It's so organic the way it comes out, and what's interesting is that, but also all these recordings just sound like dog shit, like they say in the movie. They sound bad, because the technology they had to record in the 30s was very limited.
Yeah, it's a miracle we have any of this stuff today.
It is a miracle that we have any of this stuff. But also not just the technology, but imagine the musician going to stand by themselves in front of a weird format. They're not gonna. That's probably not how they performed it in the club. So when Ryan was like, because that's the recordings we have, people think that the music sounded like that at the time. It's like you're watching your grandfather's images and photos, and they're black and white. You think the world was black and white at the time, right? And so that became kind of the idea of the music for this film. Like, how can we capture that time and capture that type of music, but maybe recreate it in a way where maybe how it maybe might have sounded like.
And that brings me to what I think is a key moment in this whole process, which is, how important was it to you and Ryan that this music be authentic, that it needed to sound authentic, and that we felt like we were really there in 1932?
No one can play like that anymore. No one can really sing like Robert Johnson or play like Charlie Patton. There are musicians that comes from that tradition that today are our generations of Robert Johnson, our generation, Charlie Patton. And those are the guys or girls that we collaborated with to make these songs for the film, especially when I was trying to find people to write these songs with, looking for foremost musicians that can also really play an instrument. For example, like Raphael Sadiq, who we did Lied to You. He's an incredible musician, and also a timeless songwriter. Like he can write blues songs. He can write songs that are timeless. That he writes for Beyonce or D'Angelo. Like he writes songs that you can't put in a box. And I feel like the same thing with Brittany Howard. She's an incredible musician, guitar player, and singer, and she can. And I think it's something, obviously sadly today, you kind of see, as I'm also like, working with a lot of younger artists, and like you see that tradition kind of disappearing a little bit, where you don't actually have to be able to play an instrument to be able to write music.
While we're talking about you and Raphael, the song is I Lied to You, and I wonder if you can talk about what that song needed to accomplish. It's at a very important point in the film. And that sequence, I think, is one that everybody is still talking about.
When I read that in the script, I had goosebumps because it was such a beautiful capturing of what a music performance can feel like.
And it takes place in the juke joint.
Yeah, it takes place in the juke joint. Preacher Boy Sammy's finally ready for his main musical performance. And he goes on stage, everyone's looking at him. And he has this moment where he just, that I think every performer has. And it's also kind of in the, you can have in the audience, especially if you know the performer, if you know who's playing, like you think you know your friend, and suddenly they're on stage and they're performing, you're like, I don't know this person anymore, right? He closes his eyes and he starts playing, and he's connecting with his ancestors and his future self, through his music. And that's also tells the evolution and the history of the blues, kind of where it came from. You see an African banjo player playing the original banjo. Well, that's where banjo, which also created country music, eventually came from Africa. You see, and then he turns around and you see a 70s style kind of psychedelic rock guitar player playing like a Hendrix style solo, and then a DJ shows up, and then and it takes all these crazy turns and all of this in a musical collage in a strange hallucinogenic dream, where it was written, but it was written exactly like that, with the people, psychedelic guitar player, DJ, juke joint dancer, Memphis dancers, and I mean, and I obviously, as soon as I read it, I was like, how the hell are we going to achieve this? Like, Ryan's putting the bar,
Because you had to make this work musically, right?
Yeah.
And maybe even be part of the choreography of the moment.
Yeah. I mean, Serena and I had, first I wrote the song with Raphael Sadiq. I called him and we needed someone to write the song. And he just has an incredible sense of story, and he's an incredible musician, and he's also from the Bay Area. Ryan's from the Bay Area, so they have a lot of connections. And he and Ryan got on the phone and talked for a long time, and he just got it immediately. And he came to this room and we sat down. I think it was the day before Serena and I went to New Orleans, and he sat down here and just performed this and wrote this beautiful, incredible song. At the time, it was just two guitars and he was singing, and I knew that I knew this is so good. Like, we're gonna be able to make anything out of this. But yeah, the crazy job was just then, Serena and I in New Orleans figuring out how to get all the musicians, who's gonna play, how are we gonna do all the choreography. We had an incredible choreographer that we worked with. And I also the first thing I did was scoring it to a video of like, animation. And I scored it to that. And then we had a full day on set where we kind of did a dress rehearsal with extras and how the camera's going to move. So then we recorded that on an iPhone camera, just how the camera's going to move. So I had another video I could score to. And then it was finally time to shoot it. And we were so rehearsed. I mean, and that's the thing with Ryan's crew. Like, we're all a big family. We worked on so many movies together. Like Serena and I, like Ryan and Zinzi, like we, Ruth Carter, Hannah Beachler, we all know each other so well. So Autumn, incredible DP, Autumn Gerald. So putting this together, it was just, we were just like a really tight group, and we had to be in order to make this happen, because we had one day to shoot it, and with an IMAX camera that's 2.5, a film roll is 2.5 minutes. You only have that many takes. And so I brought out all my gear. I had it on my laptop, and while we were shooting, we know we had to go from point A to point B within, 78 bars of music, but he's not going to move exactly in time. you know? So because I had my rig there, I was able to cut it back and forth and like do small trims on set, and then go over to the next stitch point. And so it was all we were all like crazy adrenaline when we shot that, but we were so prepared, and Ryan was leading it. It's such a flawless performance.
Something I've been wanting to tell you for a long time. It might hurt you, hope you don't lose your mind. Well, I was just a boy, about 8 years old. You threw me a Bible on that Mississippi road. See, I love you, Papa, you did all you could do. And they say the truth hurts, so I lied to you.
What was it like seeing your Swedish guitar husband becoming immersed in the history of the blues in America?
I think it gave him context to a story he had known his whole life. You know, his dad was a blues guitarist. When we're with them, we're always listening to the blues. He's always playing the blues. But going there, connecting with the musicians, learning. Half of the time we spent on this movie was spent working with, talking to historians, talking to musicologists, researching as much as we could. I think it gave him a context that he didn't have before. And seeing him, his approach evolve as we move through the shoot. You know, I think it was very difficult. It was very difficult. It was our first, you know, it was the first, we've been to film sets. We've like worked on scenes, but there's music in pretty much every scene of this film, in one way or another. And sometimes there's music on top of music. There's, you know, piano playing, there's music that the patrons in the juke are experiencing, and then there's the music that the audience is hearing that's informing their experience, and they're on top of each other. And what is that relationship? Because it was hot. There were termite swarms. There were alligators and snakes everywhere. And it was overwhelming, and I think at the beginning, Ludwig really, maybe was finding his way, struggling to answer the question, what do I have to, what kind of score is this from me? What kind of score is this? We actually didn't think there would be much score in the beginning, because we felt like the songs that Ryan had chosen were sort of acting as score. And then the last 2 weeks nobody thought there was going to be much score. I remember having these conversations with Felipe Pacheco, our music editor. There's not going to be much score on this one. Let's just focus on the songs. And then at the end, the last week or two of the shoot, Ludwig went into the studio. It's just, it was chaos every day. Finally, he had some time to himself, and he just loved that time in the studio working on his own. And the score just came out during that time, and I think it was a really powerful personal experience for him.
So how long were you there, and did you also compose the score while you were there in Louisiana?
We were there for a little bit over 3.5 months, and it got hot. I mean, we were there from like April, May, June, July. Like July was hot. You can't even be outside. I don't know how people deal with that. But yeah, the last 2 weeks of June, there were I think we shot most of the music scenes. So I was just in the studio every day, just surrounded by the instruments, and spent the whole days just writing. Then I knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah, you must have been so immersed in the sort of the ambiance and the actual music making of the time that maybe it came more easily than usual.
Yeah, both yes and no, I would say, because in the beginning, when I started, it was obviously like, yeah, this is a movie by a guitar player. I play guitar, but like this is blues music. Like who am I? Like, how do I write blues music? What am I going to say with should I try to write blues music? Like, how do I find out what I can do there? And my dad played blues music. He is a guitar player. And so when I grew up, he was playing blues music, and I was always like, okay, I'm going to play, metal, and you can play your blues music. I wasn't really interested in that. I thought metal is like, I'm doing my own thing. At that time, not thinking about that it's directly related to blues, and so the more the journey kind of went on, the more I came to that realization about kind of my connection to the blues and my journey through my childhood, and how so throughout that personal realization, I was able to kind of find my way back into my version of the blues, and through that, describing that through music.
And did you play that 1932 dobro in the score? Is that the one?
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, isn't it? It's from 1932. I find it at Norman's Rare Guitars here in LA.
Uh-huh. Is that the one we actually see Miles playing in the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Most of the songs is this open D chord.
And there's a lot of slide guitar in the film and in the score, which I think, again, adds to the authenticity of the time and the place.
Yeah, no, it was so fun. I mean, I never played that much slide before, so it was just, and I haven't played that much in that tuning either. So that gave me a lot of new ideas, inspiration on how to write, and I think I wrote everything on that guitar. I played everything on that guitar, like, and it's interesting that so you hear Miles play it live in the film, but you also hear it in the score.
So you mentioned Buddy Guy, and I think one of the wonderful moments in the movie is this sort of bookending thing where Miles is singing "Travelin'" early on in the movie, but then at the very end of the movie, we see and hear Buddy Guy, who's maybe in his 80s or 90s now, singing the same song.
Yeah, I mean, how beautiful wasn't that? And how, like, having that storyline tied together like that in the script, and having Buddy Guy saying yes to do that part, and having him perform. I don't think I've ever heard him play the acoustic guitar. I don't think he doesn't really play that anymore, but that's how he started, obviously. And so having him perform that in the end, just how incredible is that? You get something like that in a movie.
Traveling, I don't know why in the hell am I here. Traveling, I don't know why in the hell I'm here. 'cause the woman I'm loving, you know she really don't care.
To continue on the subject of the score for a second, it's not just guitars. I mean, wonder if you can talk about how the score itself evolves, because at some point we're hearing strings, but it felt like strings that were sort of playing the blues, which I thought was kind of interesting. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we had, man, I had this, one of the fun pieces of music that I wrote in New Orleans was this guitar, like 11/8 idea that, it was this kind of ostinato, the bim ba bim ba bim da bim da bim bim bim, and then I wrote 4 more melodies on top of that on the guitar, like counter melodies to that, and harmonies on top of that, and different parts. Just having a lot of fun, and somewhere along the road, I don't know if it was Ryan's idea, is like, how cool would it be if that also translated into on the strings, the big orchestra playing that as well, and with the guitar solo on top of it, while Michael B is shooting an automatic rifle like in slow motion. I was like, that's a fucking crazy idea. That's an amazing idea, Ryan. I would probably just dream about it, like, oh, of course you want to have a speedy, like crazy guitar solo over someone shooting a semi-automatic rifle, a machine gun. But it was kind of, it felt too unreal to be true, too good to be true. So, but when Ryan suggested, I was like, yeah, we'll take it all the way there, if that's what you want. And it was so fun sitting there in the session and, translating that guitar line to strings and sitting with Serena and doing it together. And, it's kind of, Ryan was saying, like, because he was sitting behind us, he was like, it really brought him back to when we were working on Creed back in the day, how we were kind of sitting there working on the strings together, and she was performing the music, and now we're sitting there together, translating these guitar lines to full string section, playing these difficult kind of slide guitar lines, but we transcribed them for the strings. And yeah, it was kind of another way of how funny life can turn out to be, and how you want to surround yourself with people that you really love, and together you can build something beautiful.
Are there themes that we should listen to when we listen to the album? Did you write specific themes for either characters or ideas?
You have Smoke, and Annie has this beautiful that's the theme. When they're in the shop together, and that that goes into this. It's such a beautiful scene, and I called my friend Vince Mendoza to make a beautiful string arrangement on that song, and then eventually and then for the soundtrack, I called my other friend James Blake to come in and write a song with lyrics and vocals on top of that. So, but that Smoke and Annie's theme, Miles, or Preacher Boy Sammy, he has a theme that I played earlier on the slide guitar. Jack O'Connell, the Remick, his theme is kind of a variation of Rock and Road to Dublin, played on the violin. And there's a vampire theme too, which kind of a kind of this ostinato. I played on the synth and the guitar.
And it's water under the bridge. I don't want sorrow, just someone to kiss. You're not your actions, and I'm not mine. When I hurt you, I hurt myself every time. And it's water under the bridge. No, I want you to live on the bright side of the street with me.
There's another theme for smoke and stack. You can't really tell what sound that is, but I was working with this incredible harmonica player, Ross Guerin, and he was playing his harmonica through a bunch of amplifiers and effects, and he played this very simple melody that you hear every time Smoke and Stack appears. But sometimes it's not, it's like, is that a guitar, is that a synth? But no, it's Ross Guerin's harmonica.
Was most of the work done then by the time you got back to Los Angeles, or was there a lot of mixing and other technical work to do?
Yeah, maybe I thought it was going to be, I was more or less done then, but no, I mean, it was so much work when he came back. It was so much work because we're trying then. But I had the music. Most of the themes were written. Most of the themes were done as songs. I like that, and that's the way I like to work. I like to write songs. I like to think of, some people say suites, but I think of it as songs. 7 or 8, 10 instrumental songs that then evolve into the score when I have the picture, and I take these songs and I make them into score, and I figure out how to put it in, and with Ryan, how we're going to fit this in. And it's so much work to kind of, because the picture keeps changing all the time. We're trying out so many different ideas. But it's so much work, but at the same time, like even if it's 12-hour days, like that's so much easier to me than 12-hour days in New Orleans, where I'm like juggling things that I've never done before, sitting with actors, going to set, that's stuff. Sitting in a studio I've done since I was 8, 9 years old. It's like it's like sucking my thumb. It's an easy thing for me. That's the kind of the thing that I spent the most time in my life to do. So yeah, it's hard work, but it's also the thing that I'm the most that I feel like comes the most easiest to me, because I spend so much time doing it.
And one of the things about Sinners is that you're hearing it in incredible Dolby Atmos sound. And I wonder how important the Dolby Atmos side of things is to you when you're mixing and maybe even recording.
Serena and I was there on the dub stage almost every day. And also because Ryan invited us. Ryan wants us to be there. Ryan is, an incredible collaborator, and he wants to hear what people have ideas and how they, how we can listen to their ideas and take it in and make the difficult decisions. But also Ryan, he really wanted, wanted this to be such an immersive experience. That's why he shot it on IMAX. That's why he really spent time on the mix, like panning things around, making it, create an experience that it's impossible to have at home, right? And also what's interesting is that, and I sometimes have to kind of pinch myself and think to myself, like, Ryan and I, we've been doing this since USC, and our first studio film, we were young and we had a great experience, but at the same time, like, people when you get started, people always think like, oh, these guys don't know what they're doing, right? And you have to, there's a lot of things that you have to prove. And now like we're at this stage in our professional careers where we are, you know, experienced and also have more responsibilities and can, I think, really create in a different way that, you know, then in a way where it feels different than when it got started, and try to push the envelope as much as we can. So
What's your hope for this film? Because Sinners is more than just I think in many ways it's more than just a period piece, more than just a kind of a vampire thriller. There's a deeper meaning to so much of this, and I'm wondering what you hope people will get out of it.
My hope is that it sparks conversation and a curiosity. There's so many things that we hit on in the film, that Ryan hit on in the script, that I think a lot of people didn't know. And there are people out there talking about this. Rhiannon Giddens. I want people to know how important this moment in history is culturally, and how everything we consume goes back to this time. You know, that was a big thing for me personally, having a classical music background. You know, I was always taught that everything came from Bach. You know, everything came from those guys. And sure, like, they were great, but all popular music that we know came from this moment. But I feel like you can take almost any scene in the film and like go down a rabbit hole in the costumes or the music or, you know, the writing, and there's a whole story there that we've tried to tell, or at least hint at. Yeah, it's nice we're seeing people, we're seeing classes, university classes, study the film. We're seeing that feedback is so wonderful.
And I think you guys have done that here, not only story-wise, but also musically on Sinners. And we're so thrilled that you and Serena could spend some time with us today talking about it. So congratulations, Ludwig. And thank you both for being with us today.
Thank you.
of course, thank you, Jon. It's always great to speaking to you.
Many thanks to Ludwig and Serena for joining us on the podcast today, and thanks to Jon Burlingame for conducting yet another excellent interview. And an extra special thanks to our friends at Warner Brothers for helping us put this conversation together. Be sure to check out Sinners, now streaming on HBO Max and Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. We have links, as always, in our show notes. And once you do, don't forget to let us know what you thought of the original music down in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you'd like even more conversations with artists and filmmakers about how they use technology to tell their stories, be sure you're subscribed to Dolby Creator Talks. You can find links to our show on all the major podcasting platforms, including the video version on YouTube, in our show notes. Or you can simply search for Dolby wherever you get your podcasts. If you're curious to know more about what we do at Dolby Creator Lab, head on over to dolbycreatorlab.com. There you'll find information about all of our programs. You can access the entire library of episodes of this show, and you can sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, this is Dolby Creator Talks. I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. Our producer and editor is Michael Coleman. Our executive producers are Amanda Schneider and Jack Ferry, with additional editing by Matt Nixon. And our production coordinator is Karen Kahn. Thanks for joining us.